What's up, everybody? Giancarlo here with the Three Swords Productions. It is an early morning when I'm recording this. I'm a little tired. We're coming into the end of set four. We have taken a little bit of a break. I know Steven's been streaming. I really haven't been doing anything One Piece related. Just life is busy, sometimes with the holidays coming up too, just had to prepare for that, I guess. And, we're moving right on into Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, happy holidays, whatever. But, I recently went to a case tournament in Dothan, Alabama. It was very fun. Shout out to Hobby Hub for hosting. And I was able to win with Blue Crocodile. This was, of course, post ban list, so red decks are severely nerfed, and the red purple decks are out, but those are also nerfed with stuff, like Luffy. And Luffy is not functioning at like full power because of the bans and limits. And then Law is pretty hidden. Law is one of my favorite fun decks from this format. So basically, this mini format, because it is only like a 3 week, month long period of basically really nerfed red decks. This is just the best format of One Piece in the history of the game, in my opinion. I've had crazy amounts of fun. I, of course, really just play blue deck, so obviously I'm very happy that the format is much more slow, much more control oriented. Blue decks are killer right now. Crocodile has proven very strong. Your worst matchup, which is Zoro, still exists, but it is severely nerfed. It is nowhere near as unwinnable as it felt before. Like, the deck is much slower now. It has a lot less power, has a lot less value. Law, red green law is tough, but it is winnable. Of course, it is a matchup that is doable. And now that deck is also nerfed. Of course, it is, again, still exists, still doing well in regionals, but that matchup's very strong. And then against the red purple decks, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that all three of those matchups are favorable for Crocodile. Red purple Law can get a little tricky. You just have to maneuver around their board as best you can. Red purple Luffy, I don't actually think is very strong overall. And then I've never played against red purple Kid. I don't think really anyone believes in that deck. Then you have a bunch of film decks running around in the meta. Whether it is mono green Eustace Kid film, which is a very aggressive deck. And I will say I have had games where that deck can overwhelm you quickly. But I will also say any game where you have a good Mihawk target is just a good game. And that is a matchup where you have exceptional Mihawk targets. They're going to play 7s, 6s, and 5s, and you're going to be able to Mihawk them and bounce them with your leader. And you can absolutely just prevent a lot of aggression. There's no rush in that deck outside of attacking twice with the leader. And then, if they are on the 8-drop Kid, you can Kaido that, you can Red Rocket. That matchup, I wouldn't say it's, easy, but it is definitely very doable, and it is a matchup that you're pretty strong with. We also have the Film Doflamingo. That one I actually will say is easy. That deck is very slow. The best card is obviously the 10-drop Doflamingo, and that card can create problems. You just kind of have to play around it as best you can. You can Red Rock it, but you have to draw a Red Rock, and again, that is a matchup where you have very good Mihawks. If they play 7-drop Luffy, you just play Mihawk, and that challenges 7-drop Luffy exceptionally well because it bottom decks it, and then you can attack whatever Luffy played the next turn. So I think it's pretty. I think it's a pretty good matchup. I don't think it's bad at all. And then finally, the big piece, we have the yellow deck, whether it's Katakuri or that's it, right? Just Katakuri right now. Yeah, right. This is the only yellow deck I play against. It can get a little tricky. So obviously, I would say the matchup is Crocodile favored. A lot of yellow players, and we're at the end of the format now, so I think a lot of people are finally learning. Yellow is a deck that wants to go second, so if you build your Crocodile deck to go first, whether you win or lose the dice roll, the yellow player, if they just don't know the matchup, they're going to choose to go second, and when they do that, you're going to be very happy because I've built my deck to go first. Now, I've also teched my deck to go second against yellow, and if I do go second against yellow, I still have a very strong curve, very favorable trades I can make, and ultimately in that matchup, you are playing the role of an aggro deck, and it's very funny because normally Crocodile is switching oh, well, I'm going to be the control deck, and I'm going to control what you, and then against yellow, you're like, I don't want to give you time. I don't want to give you the ability to top deck cards. I just want to kill you as quick as possible. And so, in that regard, I do think the matchup is pretty favorable into Crocodile. So, I do think Crocodile is one of the strongest decks in the format. There are other decks I haven't really played too much against. Rebecca was already very favored before the nerfs. I don't see that changing. Other decks that have been doing well in the meta, I just probably haven't played against too much. Like I can't even really think of any right now, but I don't know. There are obviously some other decks I'm not too familiar with, but those are basically what I've been testing against. You have the film decks. The red decks are still pretty powerful. Like Zora is still pretty good against you, but it's a lot better than it used to be. Now, this format is drawing to a close, and I think people are very, very excited about set 5, including myself. But this is my like end of format Crocodile build that I was able to win this case tournament with. So that was my brief little overview and some of your matchup spreads, and now we can actually get into the gameplay itself. All right, and I said gameplay. I meant deck profile. So the best part about Crocodile is when you're ready to push for game, blockers do not matter. You run so many cards in your deck that just get around blockers existing because it pairs so well with your leader ability. And I would say that's my favorite part about this leader. You don't actually use this leader ability a ton, maybe once or twice per game. If you're in a really bad spot, maybe a second or third time. Most of the time, you're only using this leader ability when you're swinging for game. So, if there does come a day where a better generic blue leader comes out that can fit this package better, which I think is next set, right? We have Sakazuki. He's just a much better generic blue leader because he's blue black, right? He offers like more. Now, I have been testing this deck a little bit into set 5. I need to test more, obviously, but I think this deck actually might have a chance still. So I'm gonna look forward to like continue to tech it out. There's a lot of powerful cards in set 5. Anyway, blah 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 blah. Right? Blockers do not matter because you can just 3,000 worlds plus bounce them. They're going to have to play 3 plus blockers in order to prevent you from killing them. And so that's my favorite part about the Croc Leader, right? So we'll start with 1 drops. We have 4 Kaya and 1 Law Blocker. Kaya, you can actually play her in this deck. If your opening hand is terrible and you want to dig for Sentamaru, you can play Kaya and then bounce her back through various effects in the later game. Sometimes she dies, sometimes she stays on the field the entire game. It's fine. If you have to play her, you can because she can fix your hand very quickly, and then you just bounce her back with an effect. 1 Law Blocker, you're gonna see like a select few one-ofs. Basically, I had a little bit of space in the deck, but I also did not want to play too many cards that were non-counterables, too many face cards. So 1 blocker because I do tap out a lot, but there are also turns where I just go Mihawk Law, establish a body, establish a blocker, and then that's really strong. But you can't counter with him, so just 1. The star of the deck for Sentamaru, super crazy strong card. Excuse me. This is basically your value engine. He's your advantage. He creates bodies from the deck for basically attach 1 and then pay 2 and get a Pacifista from the deck, and he gets like so much value. Most matchups you're going to save him until you can proc his effect the turn you play him. Against yellow though, it's pretty safe to slam on 3. Really, the best thing they can do is like Thunderbolt it, and if they Thunderbolt it, I mean that's like a pretty big disadvantage for them to Thunderbolt this. So it's pretty strong. I like this card a lot. It's obviously every Croc player likes this card a lot, but it's so powerful, so much advantage. We're playing 2 Dofi blockers because again, we want to go first, and our big curve is 3, 5, 7, 9. So you'll see like what we play 3, 5, 7, 9. If I play this on 3, I can organize the top of my deck to ensure that I get that best curve possible 3, 5, 7, 9. And in the late game, he's a solid blocker. He's a 4K, so he has like a little bit of leverage to attack if you need to. He's just a very solid card because you can always just organizing the top of your deck, controlling your draws is just very strong. And then we have 4 Misses All Sunday. This is a great card. When she's KO'd, she's a blocker, and then when she's KO'd, you add an event card from your drop to your hand. This, of course, helps you recycle Gum Gum Rain, Jet Pistol, not Jet Pistol, 3,000 Worlds, and Red Rock, which are the 3 events we play. Very strong card. And of course she's a blocker as well. So against yellow, again, blockers are a premium against yellow because they do not have a ton of removal. Their removal is generally pretty expensive and costly. It is a little hard to remove blockers. So, they'll play their big drop, like their 10 drop big bomb. You just red rock it, play on this all Sunday, and then you have essentially you can get another red rock for their other bomb that they play. So super super strong card. Two ulti. This card is not very good. I ended up not playing any Zoro or Law decks. That's why she's here. For one Don, you swing and you can bounce or bottom deck a two or less, and that is obviously pretty good against Law and pretty good against Zoro. I just did not play this card ever. I just countered with it. I think it's still probably worth it to play in the deck because on curve you can just play it and then swing and theoretically remove two bodies, but whatever, it's fine. Against yellow, you never play it. Against most decks, you don't play it. It's really just for the red decks, and if you play them, it'll be pretty good. 3 Sasaki, he is a 2K, but also you can play him on 3 to shuffle your hand back and get a new hand. There are times where your hand is just not very good. Again, we want to go into our 3-5-7-9 curve, and if we don't have any of those pieces, then we can just Sasaki and dig for those pieces, and then he's not too bad of a body. Again, you can swing with him and remove a body. Against Zoro, you might end up playing him just to kind of help, take pressure off the board, and he's very strong. For 2K Mihawk, it's really just a 2K. You're never really playing this card. I think it's just a cool 2K to play in the deck. Pacifista engine, we have 3, 1, and 1 Kuma. So we have 1 blocker. Again, I don't want to have too many non-counterable cards in the deck. That way I don't draw that many. And then we have 3 regulars. These are good to bring off of Sentomara. These create pressure, create value. Great card. It's crazy. One of the best cards in the deck is still just a 4/6 vanilla. It's really funny. And then we have 1 Kuma. Again, yellow struggles against blockers. I hope you can see like I'm playing a lot of blockers specifically to play around yellow, because if you can wall up against yellow, generally if you play a blocker one blocker per turn and use 1 removal per turn, you can pretty much stay at a relatively high life total against yellow, and that is going to give you the time you need to finish them off. And of course, if I draw one of my Pacifistas, having Kuma lets me block and then create pressure, and then on the rare occasion you draw both, you get to double block, which could prevent you from losing the game. I don't know. Pretty strong. Zeph, we have 2 Zeph. Zeph is really strong in certain scenarios. He's not the best, but a lot of the time he ends up getting like crazy value. What I notice a lot of yellow players do if they're inexperienced in this matchup is when they're on 4 Dawn, they'll equip a Dawn to their leader, swing, and play Parasparrow. Now, obviously, that is a good play because not only do they get to swing for 7, so they get to pressure life, they get to check their life, so they get to set up a trigger, and they get to establish Parasparrow onto the field, which is probably the best one you get to play in the early game. It's really good for me when they do that because I can just Zeph it back, and they lose so much tempo that way. And Zeph is like a huge swinger, as a 5/6, like he's so easy to make 7, and you get to pressure so quickly with Zeph. So I think this card is insanely strong. And then of course there's just blockers, there's just random 3 costs that you just want to bounce. So I mean, like, it's a really good card, and there's a lot of targets that you can just bounce. You know what I mean? I've never milled with him before. Theoretically you could. I guess if I had a miss all Sunday in hand, I could mill to try to like get a event card, or if I look at the top 5 cards in my deck with Doflamingo and I want to mill, I could do that theoretically, but I mean, I just never have. And then 2 Law promo. This card, I put this in for yellow, but more and more I just found this card was like probably one of the best cards in the deck. And now that it used to be that this card was just way too slow to ever play, now like we're at the point where this card is just insane almost all the time against so many matchups. Decks more now are about like regenerating resources. You're in more of a resource battle. You're in more of a like it's not just like slamming cards to the field and attacking. A lot of matchups come down to like winning through attrition. So this card not only is insane because it deals a free damage. If my opponent has 6 or more cards in hand, you deal a damage to them. So that's pretty cool. They just pick up a life, and it's crazy. So it basically just has rush if you really think about it, but it's better rush because it guarantees a damage, and then he stays in active mode, and he's a 7K swing. So in terms of pressure, just dropping this on turn 3 going second is like crazy pressure because all of a sudden like they lose a life, I have a big body, and like there's nothing they can do about it. And then obviously in the late game as well, There have been games where my opponent's at one life. I have some type of board established. I can just drop this to avoid a trigger and then just turn everything sideways and like just win the game right there. So this has actually been one of the MVP best cards in the deck. I really undervalued this card for a long time, and now that the format is slow enough, I think we can finally like see this card is valuable. I think it's super good, man. I mean, this card is crazy. So definitely one of the MVPs in the deck. Soge King. This card is at 3 very specifically because you always, always, always want to draw this against yellow. You could play 2 and then play other stuff, but I put it at 3 because going first against yellow, again, most yellow players are going to put you first. If you lose the dice roll, if you win the dice roll, you just get to choose to go first. And you always want to play this on turn 7 Dawn, which is like what, turn 4? Because um, yellow, they're going to have 6 Dawn. Now their deck, they play Randolph and they play Parasparrow 6 drop. So they're going to spend their entire turn playing a vanilla, and maybe they use that leader ability, maybe they don't, but they spend their entire turn playing a vanilla, and you just bounce it back with Soge King, and they lose so much tempo. For the rest of the game, that vanilla is probably dead. There's probably no way they have enough time now to reestablish that vanilla. And if they do, that's fine. You'll probably have another answer to it. But you play this at 3 specifically for the yellow turn. They play their vanilla, whether it's Randolph or Parasparrow 6 drop, you just bounce it back. Um, they're at an awkward enough number to where their third turn they can probably only play one card, right? Like they only have 6 Dawn. So even if they play a 4 drop and equip something to leader, on that turn, you're gonna punish that play so hard just by playing Soge King. So this is exceptional card. And then of course, draw 2, discard 2 fixes your hand, and it has counter power, which is why we play it over Doflamingo, because having counter power is too important. Uh, Favorite card in the entire game is 9 drop Mihawks. Card's still so powerful. And again, this is the top end of our 579, because there you might not think it, but there are absolutely games where I just go play Zeph, pass, play Soge King, swing, pass, play Draco Mihawk, swing, pass, and the game is over. And all I did was play these 3 cards in a sequence, and my opponent's board was dealt with. My opponent was not able to pressure me at all, and it was a very easy game. All I had to do was play bouncing cards and then swinging cards. Like it was just so like I've had multiple games like that, and those are the best games you can have, because like you just don't have to really do anything other than play the cards you drew and attack with them, and it makes like the game state very simplified. So any matchup where you're gonna have good Mihawk targets on curve, again, if I'm playing against Film Doflamingo, that's another deck that wants to go second, right? They're gonna have 8 Dawn and they're gonna play their Luffy. Luffy's gonna play whatever, and I'm gonna have 9 Dawn and I'm just gonna slam Doflamingo to bottom deck Luffy. And now my Doflamingo then challenges the other card that they played just by attacking it. They're probably going to play something with 5k power. Okay, well, I'm just going to swing on it, and Doflamingo is going to kill it due to the nature of it being a 9k attacking to a 5k. It's going to be pretty hard to protect that. So any matchup where you have good Doflamingo targets, good Mihawk targets, you're going to have a good matchup. This card is not actually great against yellow. There are very, very few examples. If they're still playing 7-drop Lin Lin, which some builds do, some builds don't, there is an opportunity to slam this. But a lot of the times they're just going to play Katakuri, and you're going to play this as a tempo, and you might bottom deck like a 1-drop pudding. It's really funny when that happens because you're going to do it just because. You're going to end up playing this just as tempo so you can try to deal damage to them, and you don't really get a lot of value out of his effects. So he's not great against yellow, but he's not that bad either. It really he's really good when your opponent just happens not to draw Katakuri is really all I can say, because if they have 8 Dawn and they just slam Katakuri, it's bad. But if they play anything else because they just didn't happen to draw Katakuri, then he's super good. I've had games like that where my opponent plays Randolph and Parasparrow or whatever, and plays a cracker and attacks and passes with some Dawn up, and I'm like, oh great, this is a great Mihawk turn. But it's really just because they didn't draw Katakuri. And then we play double Kaido. There are matchups where this card is probably necessary. Again, Eustace Kid is more popular in the meta now. The 8-drop Eustace Kid. He does bounce Katakuri. So, if you're in a game where your opponent curves into Katakuri, you can curve into Kaido, preventing pressure. And then any game where you can slam this guy, I try to slam him as early as quick as I know, as early he's a 10-drop, as early as possible. I try to slam him super quick because he is super hard to remove. There are very few cards that actually remove him. One of them is like in the mirror match they can red rocket, but like he's very hard to remove. You really can't attack over him, and you really can't out counter his attack. Like it's very difficult to get out of a 10K. I mean, excuse me, he's a 12K. It's very difficult to get out of a 12K. Like it's hard to get out of it once. So getting out of it more than once is damn near impossible. And then, like I said, this deck is so good against blockers that this guy basically guarantees damage as soon as he comes down. So I try to slam this guy as quick as possible. That way he can just attack 12, 12. I don't even have to, no Dawn. I don't have to think about it. Just 12, 12, 12. Okay, please take this damage, please. So definitely like very slow, very situational, but in terms of like just a big attacker, he is amazing. Great big beat stick, basically. And we'll get into the event cards. We have one Gum Gum Rain. Again, if you look, I play a lot of non-counterable cards. So if I happen to like draw double Kaido, I would like a card that lets me counter with a Kaido. That way I don't die to like a 5K or something. So one Gum Gum Rain, four 3,000 worlds, and three Red Rock. The only reason I chose this ratio was because this card I need to draw faster, and this card is better early game. This card is better late game against big bombs. But both altogether, they're all amazing. And then again, 3,000 worlds. I'm telling you, there have been so many games where my opponent just tries to double blocker. They'll go play blocker, and I'm like, okay, play 3,000 worlds, activate leader ability, bottom deck one, bounce one, win the game. Like it happens all the time. And you can also do that with Red Rock. Sure, you have the same scenario. It costs two more Don, so it's a little more difficult. But that is basically my end of format Crocodile build. Yeah, and this is like really my favorite deck right now. I've been playing it a lot. I'm gonna continue playing it until the end of the format, and I'm going to try to tech it out next format, see if I can compete with Sakazuki and Enel and blah blah blah. Right. So there's a lot of super strong decks that it might be a little too difficult to play, but again, I'm gonna try anyway because it's fun, you know. And everyone, thanks for watching. We're gonna try to, set five. I think everyone's excited. We're gonna try to get more content to you guys. In set five, because I think we're all very excited to play it. So everyone, thanks for watching. If you have any comments, critiques, let me know. Peace.